Good evening and welcome to the Pownal Board of Directors meeting for January 21st. First on the agenda, before we start the agenda, I want to ask the board members, I would like to move number 7A, the Vermont Agency, Mr. Von Adamus. I'd like to move him up after our presentation. Is that all right with the board?
So moved.
Yes.
Second, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now the grand opening will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand for that, please.
Well, we always have to do this. What do you think?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next we have our presentation of animal habitats with second grade students.
So these are students from Mrs. DeRoche's second grade class as well as Mrs. Hunt's second grade class. So Mrs. Hunt.
Well, first we'd like to thank you for letting us come and present. We had a wonderful turnout. Mrs. DeRoche apologized for not being here, but she was taking her daughter to college today. So she won't be here. They are giving you a report that they've been writing on. They've also are showing you their diorama, and some of them are doing a little sampling of other things we've been doing in the classroom.
Very
So
nice.
we'll start with Meg.
My name is Maggie.
Why don't we have you put this?
Oh, well. That panda.
Put this over here.
Hello. Nice to meet you. My name is Megan Beth. I worked on a report on pandas. What I like most about pandas is they are nice and I want to help them. This is my diorama habitat of the panda. Pandas is the bamboo forest. Panda's habitat is the bamboo forest. I use tissue paper and shreds for bamboo. Most moss and water habitat to show my habitat.
Katie Lynn.
Maggie, did you want to show your diorama and hold it up? You did such a nice job in that hard work. Think you need to share? Hold it up there.
She's over there.
Nice job. Show everybody.
All right, Jamie Lynn.
My name is Jamie Lynn. I worked on a report on prairie dogs. What I like most about prairie dogs, the prairie dog is prairie is that they run very fast. This is my diorama of prairie dog. The habitat of prairie dogs is the grasslands. I use able for the burrow and moss for grass. My name is Abigail Tiedemann. I wrote a report on the great white. What I like most about the great white is they hunt fish. I love fish. This is my diorama. The habitat of the great white is the ocean. I use plastic wrap for the water and a shark to show the habitat.
butterflies. What I like most about monarch butterflies is their beautiful wings. They are black and orange. This is my diorama of the habitat of the monarch. It is milkweed and flowers. I use twigs and paper flowers to show the habitat.
Lillian Stromeyer.
Dolphins are really nice. They can even save little kids' lives. Dolphins have smooth gray skin. They have large fins. They have a beak-shaped nose. They breathe through a blowhole. They have many small teeth. Dolphins live in saltwater oceans and the water has to be warm. Some dolphins live in some freshwater rivers. Dolphins eat shrimp, squid, and crabs. Dolphins swim in packs to catch food. A mother dolphin has one calf at a time. A calf is 4 feet long when it's born. A calf stays close to its mother. When a calf is 2 years old, it learns to hunt. A calf stays with its mother for 6 years. Dolphins can jump out of the water to 16 feet high. There's over 32 different kinds of dolphins. I like dolphins because they are nice. I read a story about a little boy who was on a ship with mean guys who wanted to hurt them and steal his money. But he jumped overboard and a dolphin saw him and caught him and brought him back to shore. That's why I like dolphins.
Thomas Saunders.
One of you? Sure. I will. Abby. You. Don't. So. Make sure you don't slip. The elephant is so cool because they have fingers on their trunks. Be careful. The African has 2 fingers, but the Asian only has 1. The elephant is a large gray animal that has big ears and a special nose called a trunk. Also, they have special teeth called tusks. This big fat animal can be up to 13 feet 4 meters and is the largest land animal. You can easily tell the difference between an African and an Asian, their ears. African has bigger ears and Asian has smaller ears. The elephant lives in either a grassy savanna in Africa or in South Asia and India, depending on what kind of elephant it is. This animal eats 2,000 pounds, 91 kilograms every day, and it eats bark, leaves, fruit, herbs, and tree branches. They're prey to some animals. The main predator is the fast cheetah. Female elephants have 1 calf at a time. In a herd of female elephants, moms help other moms take care and protect the calf. A male calf will leave to go to a male herd when it's 17, while a female will never leave a female herd. An elephant can live to be 60 years old. Elephants don't need much sleep. Elephants can't jump. They spend most of their day eating. So that is why I picked the elephant, the awesome facts and the cool abilities.
Excellent.
Very nice. Henry?
My name is Henry Steinhoff. I wrote a report on drafts. What I like most about gas is that they are tall. This is my dilemma. The habitat of the gas is the savanna grasslands. I use tape, Legos, Play-Doh, fuzz balls, paper, and toys. Are we here?
Yep, show 'em.
Very
Brianna Bentley.
Excellent.
Very good. Nice job, buddy.
Nice job.
My name is Brianna Bentley. When I was looking at eagles, they beat a lot to the United States. This is my diorama. The habitat of eagles is the mountain. I use pictures from a wildlife magazine and a statue of an eagle and a nest with eggs made to show my habitat.
Very nice.
Zebras live in the grassland. Zebras are in the horse family. Zebras eat grass. Zebras are soft. They have manes that stick out. Some have brown manes. I like zebras because they are so cute. My Alexa, we got this information from www.covergo.com.
Very nice.
Good job.
Animals live all over the world. There are many different places that animals live. Cheetahs live in Asia. They like to roam and can run up 70 miles per hour. Cheetahs hunt. They eat antelope, the cheetahs, because I like cheetahs, they run so fast.
Good job.
My animal report. A turtle is a reptile with a hard outer shell. Turtles are found all over the world. Turtles eat grass, leaves. Female turtles lay eggs on land. I like the hard outer shell by Brady Ritchie. We got this information from www.publico.com. My animal report. The peregrine falcon is a bird of prey. This bird hunts other birds, bats, and mice. They have marks on its face. They live on cliffs, laying 2 to 4 eggs.
Good job.
Good job, Daniel. Thank you.
What does my Earth have? My Earth has oceans. What? My Earth has plains. My Earth has valleys.
emotions and me.
Thank you, second graders. You did an awesome job tonight. Great work. And I know that's hard to get up in front of others and share, but you all did wonderful. Thank you. And thank you, parents, for your support.
Could I take this? Brady, pass me.
All right,
Pass it
now,
down.
next on the agenda, we're going to move Mr. Altimus.
I like so
And we're going to get you a chair so you can sit right up here.
Okay. Like to be able to reach the desk because I'm here to listen as well as to talk.
I don't have
How would you like to work?
Would you like to begin?
Well, I can go over the law fairly quickly and why we think it means what it means. It was included in Act 153 of year 2010, and the part on transportation is very brief. It's under the duties of supervisory union boards, and it simply says that they will provide transportation or arrange for the provision of transportation or both in any districts in which it is offered within the supervisory union. So districts still have the authority to decide whether their children need transportation to get to school, and we think it's reasonable. Is a reasonable case that they could also decide some of their children live close enough to walk and others need transportation. But once the need for... Yes?
A lot of people here that want to hear this conversation about how to be training to hear it.
I can stand up for a bit and lean over if I... So basically the law was changed in 2010, and supervisory union boards were made responsible for transportation throughout the supervisory union. The law provides considerable flexibility to supervisory unions for applying the law, for achieving the objective. They can operate buses, they can contract for the provision of buses, they can even contract with districts. The key point is that supervisory union boards need, in a good faith effort, to certify that this is the efficient way of providing transportation on a supervisory union basis. Okay, and that's where it gets tricky, because one district could have a great system, but if everything is consolidated SU-wide, it could be a greater opportunity for the SU, and the expectation is that the SU board will go for efficiency at the SU level. Now, there is a provision for a waiver, but in order to get a waiver, and again, requests for waivers get submitted to the Secretary of Education after a vote by the SU board, and as part of that vote, the SU board should be saying, we have evidence that transportation can be provided more efficiently, and they use the word more, not as efficiently. They literally say more efficiently and more effectively under some other way than under the law. So the Secretary expects an SU board to take a serious look at a set of circumstances and to make that determination. And if the SU board believes that it's more efficient, for example, for a district to continue to operate and pay for its own buses, then it will gather that evidence, it will take its vote, and it will make a submission for a waiver to the Secretary of Education. Typically, that means I review it, and then I pass it to our General Counsel, Greg Glennon. He reviews it. The preponderance of the time, we actually agree and make our recommendations to the Secretary, and the preponderance of the time, she agrees with us. There are occasions when he and I disagree, and she gets to referee. And there are occasions when we do agree, and she looks at us and says, I want more information on something. She takes the idea of a good faith effort to comply with the law very seriously, and she expects supervisory union boards to do precisely the same thing. Now, basically, well, I can tell you, the way to avoid flags that are immediately going to call our attention to you is if the SU board takes a vote approving the transportation system in the SU, and if the SU board is paying for all of the transportation. The SU board can use multiple processes. It can use contracts, it can, and they don't have to be exclusive, it can use more than one. Contracts, it can operate its own buses. In particular cases, if it's more efficient, particularly during a transition period, it could contract with a district to run the buses the district has been running. But I know it seems a little bit circular, but the district would be assessed and the SU would be paying the district for contracted services. And usually the expectation in that case would be that this would be a transition period. Now, in order for a district to have its, basically do it, a significant number of districts have been doing, and they are moving, it would take an argument that it's more efficient and effective for the district to keep doing it, and there's some reason why having the SU involved would make it less efficient. And in that circumstance, the circumstance where an SU is not paying for it, it's showing up as transportation expenditures in a district, unless there's a waiver, and this doesn't happen next year, but unless there's a waiver, transportation aid is going to be calculated on supervisory union transportation expenditures. And so if the district were determined enough to take that course of action, what would happen is a tiny bit over 40% of the cost of your transportation to and from school, which currently comes from the state, still out of the education fund, but from the state, would be withheld. I don't enjoy threatening people at all, believe me, but that's pretty much the way that it's set up that far. Now, there are all sorts of things we haven't figured out about how to implement it, which is why I brought my trusty notepad. I tried to set up a meeting with our CFO, Bill Talbot, and the person in charge of the chart of accounts, Aaron Brodeur, and I came in with a couple things I really wanted to be able to authoritatively say tonight, and Bill said, Vaughn, it's evolving. We're not ready to talk about that yet. So there wasn't such a meeting. If you bring up the questions, I'll say, see, I wish you'd answered them, and I will do my very, very best to get back to you. The other thing I could tell you is, well, a couple things. One, this is simply a statement of fact, not a judgment at all. The agency, then the department, had very little to do with Act 153. My own involvement, one morning I was walking past the CFO's office, greeted him, and he said, Vaughn, stop in. When I sat down, we got a deal for you. Armando says you're going to be perfect for this. I want you to be he wants you to be his point man for Act 153. I should have focused more on the point man part than I actually did. But we are charged with enforcing a very, very complicated law. Portions of that law are not popular in a number of places. The other point that I'd like to stress is that they actually didn't simply make up the idea that SUs should be able to provide transportation more efficiently. There are a lot of places where it is already working. When I first got to, not first, I've been, I don't know, maybe 4 years or so at the Agency of Education, and that was a geological time ago. Rutland Northeast changed from district by district provision of transportation to SU-wide, and the savings was sufficient that it actually caused a trigger on a federal audit. So I had to call them up and ask what happened, and that's what it was. Now, those were less austere times, and it didn't show up then as a savings. It showed up as money that they used on other education priorities. But it clearly saved a good deal of transportation money. And there are a number of supervisor unions that started very, very early. The date of implementation was postponed twice, that got on board early and have managed to do things that that save money. And basically, the bottom line is, if you can demonstrate that you're not, you're able to get a waiver. And it isn't necessarily a one-year waiver. The secretary is going to want, first of all, actual evidence. And unfortunately, what the people of a district or an SU want isn't something the law allows us to consider at all. It's got to be measured entirely in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. Okay? Now, if the SU is paying for everybody, and if the SU has voted approval, the SU board, it is not our inclination, and if we wanted to, we don't have the resources to micromanage every SU's measurement of efficiency. We don't intend to do that. That having been said, there are circumstances that could trigger closer looks. If one district is providing its own, even if it's paying for it, and the others are part of some kind of a contract, and it seems to be spending a great deal, given the amount of transportation being provided, relative to the other districts, that might cause a look. If, and this happens a good deal more than you might think, a citizen in the district, and it's not always a citizen of the children in school, calls up and says, hey, we're really being ripped off, we'd like you to look into this. We pretty much have an obligation to do that, and we will. But generally, if the SU board approves, after evaluating evidence that shows, again, more efficient and effective to continue doing what you're doing, then the board uses that evidence, votes to apply for a waiver, and sends it to the secretary.
Can I speak?
Please.
Can I ask a question? My name is Becky Chijanto, and I'm a taxpayer, a resident, and I'm also here at the library and work here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if everyone's aware, because people change in their positions, but years ago, Pownal actually was its own district. And students that graduated from the 6th grade here were allowed, depending on geographically where they were in this town, to go to school in Hoosick Falls, Williamstown, or Mount Anthony. And I believe, I could be wrong, I can't say for sure, but I believe that was the beginning of the reason to have our own buses.
Mm-hmm.
I know that our school board has been very generous, and they spent a lot of money putting cameras on buses. And for me, I've worked here 14 years. We have so many wonderful programs that the students are able to participate in because we can afford to send them to the ski club, the plays, all kinds of, and after the summer school program for one thing. And I'm just wondering, I know it sounds like it might be a good deal for the SU. However, I don't think it should be punitive for this school. And another question is, if in fact we're forced, because that's how I feel, we're gonna be forced into this, what are we supposed to do with our buses?
The buses are absolutely yours. I can tell you how different people have different districts are dealing with it. The most common circumstance is where the SU has decided to go for an SU-wide contract. And frequently that happens when the SU, some of the districts in the SU already have a contract, and the contractor is willing to expand to the district or districts that own buses. And what they typically do is they work into the contract, because the contractor is going to need more buses, that the buses will be purchased for fair market value, and there are assessors that will give a reputable fair market value for the buses. But as I said, they are your buses, and if you don't think that's a fair deal, it's more, in fact, before you sign that deal, you can see what you can get for the buses you own on the open market. They're your buses. Nobody is suggesting for a moment that they're not. Okay. Now, if the SU wanted, and some do, want to operate buses, right now it's, in spite of our efforts to explain to the legislature that if it wanted SUs, if it provided literally for SUs to own buses, it ought to provide for them to be able to purchase them. SUs don't borrow money. So there are occasions where SUs are finding it useful to lease buses from the districts that own them, and in some cases lease additional buses where they want to operate their, they think the best thing for their district is to operate buses. Now, in terms of your special programs, supervisory union boards have a great deal of flexibility in assessments, and depending on how they want, some are going with a truly equalized model and trying to get districts to provide similar level of services. Others are using assessments that are fairly close to purchase services, or actual, in some cases, I think a couple are going to try to use purchase services where, you know, you could still send students by school transportation to, I think you use ski clubs as an example, and those things, and the cost of it would be factored in and the district would pay for it.
So, if this is a savings for SU, how can we know? And how will we, as people that work here and in this town, how are we going to know that we are going to enjoy a savings? Because just in my little world, anytime there is a monopoly of any service, prices, there you are. And you can say, okay, this year you're going to get this awesome discount. It's going to be $5,000 less. And the next year, oh, this happened and this happened, so now it's going to be $10,000. And we would absolutely have no choices at that point. And I would like to know, I want someone to show us where our benefit, as in this school right here, where our benefit is coming from. SU is one thing, that's mostly Bennington and Shasbury and Woodford. But I want to know where our savings and how it would not be punitive to us to be lumped in with the SU.
Did you want to respond before I answered?
Yes, this goes along with her. You mentioned two important key elements here. First, you said this would be more efficient, and then you said in good faith. More efficient. What's more efficient than having your own buses for over 50 years, having your same bus drivers, having personnel that know every child on the bus, their families, their relatives, their caring individuals. Also, you said good faith. Same thing that goes along with Becky saying, who's to say another company comes in here, oh, I've got that great deal of $5,000 saving. Next year, because this happened, it's not 10, it's 15.
The latter I can answer.
Wonderful people here. We've operated these buses. And my third question is, have we applied for a waiver?
Yeah.
Do we have that going
You
now?
applied for a waiver for 1 year, I believe. I don't
But
think
then
we
you
have
said we could have it for longer.
if you can demonstrate that
To who?
Well, first to the SU board, and then the SU board agrees and submits a waiver process to the secretary.
And
Now,
how many districts in this state still have their own buses?
that I don't know right off the top of my head. We actually have the information, but I don't have it with me.
There
But
is,
they're still running their own bus system.
This year.
Through their own thing.
This year,
No,
there were what happened last year is there's a bill some of you have heard of called H-883, and it was going to basically continue voluntary consolidation through 2017 and then mandate it. It passed the House, and then it died late in the session in the Senate. And inside H-883 was a provision that would have eliminated these.
But 883 didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen, but let me, so it didn't make sense to ask people to apply for waivers when it was passing the House. We didn't know what was going to happen in the Senate, so we wound up with about 3 weeks to process people's waivers. So it tended to be, given the limited ability to gather evidence and our limited ability to evaluate it, it was very much, look, we're in the midst of this right now and we need a waiver. And there were a few 2-year waivers granted where they were transitional. People said, look, in 2 years we could fully comply. There's a case where we have a contract in a district and it's cheaper to let it run its course than it is to attempt to buy it out. But in most cases, in the preponderance of cases, it was a matter of applying for 1-year waivers, and then if you wanted a further waiver, the standard of evidence would be higher. Now, in terms of bus drivers, in the same way that buses are often purchased, districts are frequently able to negotiate arrangements where the same people are driving the buses. Now, I'm not going to kid you. The reason these people can underbid is a good portion of the time the wages that they're getting are lower than the wages that you're paying them now.
You know, and that's the point. We have our own school board. We do have a Pownal school board who has been very, very generous to our bus drivers, to people there. That's not to say another company's going to come in and be as kind and understanding. This is a community, you know, that care about it and their people.
I'm here to explain rather than to defend.
I have a couple of
I'm
comments.
sorry. Go ahead,
My
please.
name is Cindy Dufour. My family has owned Dufour Tours for over 55 years. We run the SUV school buses.
Mhm.
Every child in Pownal that's come to this school that has moved on to the the middle school through the high school rides a Dufour bus from Pownal. So I take exception to some people that say our bus drivers are not trained, or our buses can't pass inspection. We run very good
Your buses would have,
Our
anybody's
our
buses will
company,
pass
we've been in this
inspection.
district for 25 years. I've been in Pownal for almost 19 years. I live in Pownal. I am a Pownal resident. I live with a Pownal native. His mom drives school bus for Dufour. Right now, I have a list of 9 people that live in this town that drive school bus for Dufour. Many of them are here tonight because we take exception to this. We are residents of this town. We are taxpayers. We are good citizens. We do a really good job. At one point, when Pownal was desperate for drivers or school buses, I stepped in and helped out for free. And I would still do that today if I was asked. And I think many people in this room know me, know who I am, know who I stand for, and what we do for this town, or for many towns. And for Becky to say that the district does not include Pownal, we have 4 buses that run to that middle school and high school every day. Shasberry has 3.
That's not what I meant.
I'm telling you that we do a good job. Becky's my neighbor. We want to do a good job for Bennington, for Pownal, for Williamstown, for the whole area that we all live in. and work in, and for our children.
I'll be honest with you, when you already have a contract for your middle and secondary students, you have buses running through the community, it would be an unusual circumstance where you couldn't get a contract that saved money. Now that clearly does not address these issues that mean a lot to you. But
They
with
do
that,
mean a lot to all of us,
but with Act,
and I agree.
with Act 60 and Act 68, there is another dimension to all of this, which is clearly when districts decide how much they spend, they have the greatest impact on their taxes. But because of the equalization process, you all, in your choices, affect the entire state. Now, Pownal isn't the largest district in the state, but
So how can we affect it?
the
This
hope-
is, you know,
it
it's almost
is,
like somebody made up a rule all of a sudden.
imagine, well, I don't mean to trivialize it. It isn't that Pownal can, it's that a state full of Pownals aggregated can, and that is the legislature's hope. And the legislature put in a provision that if you can show that it's more efficient and effective to keep doing it, then you're.
Could you clarify? I understand the efficient. What does the effective mean? How is that defined?
Effective has to do with service. If for some reason there were, for example, and you might be able to think of another definition of.
According to the,
of
how
effective.
is it defined?
Pardon? The act doesn't define it, it uses the word. But the way we have been interpreting it, and I mentioned at the beginning, this is still evolving. We have been inclined to interpret it as services for children. If a plan came in and students who used to get one kind of service got a dramatic decline in service, then you could start making an argument about it not being as effective. But the SU board has an awful lot of tools to maintain effectiveness.
Well, can I ask you a couple of procedural questions?
Please.
So there's a supervisory union and there's this Pownal District School Board.
Right.
We are here tonight. The waiver, obviously, if we're gonna total line, we got to do this waiver thing. Are you saying the supervisory union has to write the waiver?
Absolutely.
So what does this board have to do?
This
Petition the
board
board.
would have to petition the SU board.
So we write the superintendent as a board a letter saying we want a waiver.
And there are two ways you could do that. You could gather the evidence yourself, and if I were an SU board, and I've been working with a contractor for a very, very long time, the first thing I'm going to do is see how much it costs Pownal on its own for its elementary, and then I'm going to ask the contractor, if you were to expand it to include Pownal's elementary students, how much would it cost, and would you be able to, put buses in basically the same places, and then compare efficiency and effectiveness.
I got three more quick questions.
Sure.
This is from the audience, basically. That's my question too. This law, this act 153
Yes, sir.
was enacted in 2010.
Yes, sir.
Almost 5 years ago. We're just really hearing about it now. Is it in that book? Is there a chapter and verse in the
I can give you
the title
the,
that has the exact law, not just?
not the whole law. If you want to look up the whole law, the easiest way to do it is to get back to
The most accurate way to do it. It's the most
the
accurate.
most accurate way to do the entire law, most of which has nothing to do with transportation, is to go to the legislative homepage, and then there will be a Vermont laws link, Vermont statutes link, and you click on that, you go to Title 16, which is education law, and I'm sorry, don't go to Title 16. For this, go to Acts and Resolves. Thank you. Go to Acts and Resolves, and then you've got to change the year to 2010, and then you'll get all of the acts of 2010, and you scroll down to Act 153, and you'll see every word of it.
But, so
But-
the act is it, we're trying to figure out if it's a law or it's something that's almost a law.
It's a law, it's absolutely a law. If you want to see the portion that applies to transportation, you can look in Title 16, Section 261A.
Okay, our chief financial officer.
Well, this is the act, but I think you really want the, you
We're
want,
looking for the, and this is my last question.
It's
Maybe my
really-
last question.
you want the supervisory duties.
It's honestly, this is all it is, this little teeny thing G here, the sentence, and then probably for your purposes and your interest, the more important part, under 8, describes for all of the obligations of supervisory unions, what you need for a waiver. So it is actually in statute, it's codified.
The two words you repeated several times were more efficient and more effective. And then we talk about money. Which one of those words covers the money? Is it?
Generally, efficiency carries money, resources in and services
But
out.
If we can show we're gonna save $1, okay, that's more efficient. Is there a benchmark? If we show that Pownal running their own buses saves $1 over the SU, that's more efficient. Is it that quantitative or is it judgment?
It's trickier than that, I'm sorry.
Of course.
If Pownal operating its own buses is $1 more efficient for the SU as a whole, then yes, it does. If Pownal operating its own buses is $1 more efficient for Pownal, but because of a loss of economies of scale, it's more expensive for other districts, it wouldn't meet it.
So that's really efficient. And then the last one, Cindy, effective. That's a loaded, if we're efficient.
No, effective is critical. The
kids are being picked up and dropped off safely.
Yes.
Here in Pownal. That's effective, right?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
And sir, here's another thing. We have communication between our office, our principal, and our bus drivers.
Amen.
How many people they call each other. There's not somebody there to pick up the child, and that happens. Many children get to their bus stop. There's nobody there. They telephone, or they do their walkie-talkie thing. There's communication. They call, and they communicate with each other.
That's
To
part
me,
of
that's
effectiveness.
efficient, too.
That's-
That's caring for these children.
That's totally part of it.
Are we going to have that anyplace else? I don't think so.
Within our contract with supervisory union, all of our buses have radios that are into our main office or my office in Williamstown. We have communication constantly with our bus drivers and our school bus drivers and our schools, our principals, our man in the office, or myself in Williamstown, Mass. We have a big district, and I'm out of a different district now, but I still have communication within my drivers in Williamstown, Lanesboro, Bennington, Pownal. I get the Pownal High School drivers, Shasberry. We have quite a system. It's in our contract with the district. So when it's contracted, we do it.
But our bus drivers are able to get to our kids within a 10-15 minute, and if they have to, they bring the kids back to the building, and they're there.
This is
That's efficient.
This is not something I can arbitrate at all. This is something you and your board talk about, and this is an argument that your board makes to the SU, and the SU makes to, if it chooses to, the SU board makes to the secretary. I do hear both sides of this. I really, really do. There's the correct way to settle this is to sit down, pull data together. I have no doubt that everybody here is operating in good faith with serious concern. I can tell you what the law is. There's no way on earth that I can judge your specific circumstances. Ultimately, your SU board will be responsible for gathering the data, and your local board has the choice of making the first cut at gathering that data and presenting it to the SU board as part of your request.
Can I
I'm
ask?
sorry, this lady's been very great.
Sorry, my name's Cynthia Valley. I teach here. Before I was a teacher, I had a background in automotive banking and accounting. First of all, as far as Pownal goes, we don't have to factor profit into our
our costs. I'm hearing leasing, I'm hearing contracts. That's a luxury that these others don't have. Therefore, their argument is probably going to be, we can still do it cheaper because we have more drivers, we have more buses. And from an accounting standpoint, for something like this, efficiency and effectiveness, I have a pretty good hunch that in presenting a case, it would be, right now we have 10 buses that cover routes of 500 miles a day and pick up X number of kids. There are X numbers of empty seats on each bus. Therefore, we can expand X number of routes to pick up a full bus of kids. You know, you can show efficiency and effectiveness with numbers. And does that mean that on a regular basis with more kids to pick up, that we can run on the same time schedule? Will the children get to school within the same amount of time on a snow day and so forth? And having been in accounting, they can make these numbers look wonderful, and none of that is factored in anywhere. And we're very fortunate to have someone that lives in Pownal that has a business, and it's wonderful that local people have profit and profit for business. If we get too big and Albany decides we're worthwhile bidding on, are we going to be able to contain costs then? Are we going to be able to be certain that the person that's not our next door neighbor and cares about our kids and isn't a half hour down the road in her office, are we sure they're going to be as diligent in maintaining their buses? Or are they going to go for efficiency equals how many kids in a bus for how many miles per day, week, month, year, for whatever, at X amount of gas expense and X% profit? Pownal can demonstrate a savings on profit.
I am absolutely confident that Mr. Pembroke can accurately monitor what it's costing now and what it's costing under the new system. And if there's a rapid increase, it will show up. And there are cases when people first started moving some years ago to contracts, and a lot of times with supervisory districts that are big enough. Exactly, that did happen. They got these great deals, came in, and some of them said, well, some of them threatened they'd buy their own buses and got prices down, and some of them went out and got their own buses. But the further out you go, you know, the wider the range, as you know, as an accountant, and the blurrier it gets. You can as easily imagine other sorts of things, like technical center regions operating and owning buses. Now, profit mode is a very tricky thing. If you look at, and I actually like the idea of mutual businesses, but when a business invests capital, it's investing capital that the district doesn't have to invest. You have a sinking fund, it's not cheap. Okay, so profit is a return on an investment, and if you're going to own your own buses, you're gathering the necessary capital. The other thing is, if it's reasonably close to the contract cost, it would be possible for the SU board to determine that it would contract with Pownal to operate the buses. It's circular, as I said, you pay them, then they pay you. But that is within the scope of the law unless it's completely out of proportion to the costs of your middle and high school students and the other elementary students in the SU.
Could I ask the
Well,
school
this
board?
gentleman's incredibly patient, I'm sorry.
I have a financial question. My name is Mike Gardner. I'm a lifelong resident of Pownal, taxpayer, work for Dufour as a manager of the Vermont Division. My financial question is, if Pownal's granted the waiver, and I just want to be clear on this, do they lose that 41% state and federal aid?
Not if they're granted the waiver.
Not if they're granted the waiver.
No.
If they're not granted the waiver, then
If you are not granted the waiver and the SU, one way or another, is not paying for your transportation, either through the contract it sets up or contracting services with you or whatever, if the SU is not making that expenditure, then you would lose that.
then they lose that,
40.
whatever, 40
Yes,
points,
sir.
whatever it is.
40 points.
Right.
You're very good. Not many people know that yet this year.
Well,
I just wanted to ask the school board a question.
Oh, okay, and then this lady will be
Okay.
next. I'm trying to be good.
Okay, I know you are, you do. I wanted to ask, because this is about the actual property of the buses. Now those, I'm just throwing a question out to you. We purchased those, this district, with our tax dollars, right? But they really belong to the town of Pownal. And so I don't think that you can just willy-nilly sell them off or do what, you have to have a town vote for that. That's
If you're,
property that belongs to the town.
I may be able to help. If you're like almost every school district in the state, there are a couple of exceptions. They're usually big like Burlington and Rutland, where there's a tie-in to the town charter. Your school district is a municipality and able to own real property, which would mean it's actually the school district that would own the buses and be able to dispose
I'd
of
still
them.
like to have that checked into legally, just to make sure.
Yeah, we can.
Sure.
I'm also
Well,
a member.
may I ask, this lady's been back there, so may I ask her first to not?
Yes.
Sorry.
This relates to Act 153 of 2010.
Yes.
It is mostly, it identifies specific provisions of the legislation addressing voluntary school district mergers. How is it that we're going from a voluntary school district merger, which has not been approved, if a piece of the legislation under this act has been approved without anyone knowing about it? Is it in fact provisional that Act 153, 2010 is this transportation law provisional under the voluntary merger of
No,
supervised unions?
it's a completely different section of law. And if you wanted to look at the extension in Act 156, it's got this title that has nothing to do with mergers or transportation, and it extends the deadline. At the end of the session, they couldn't meet the adjourning requirements and go through the procedures, so they literally took a very small education bill, took the entire, I forget the H number at the time, stuffed it in this law, and that's how they got it through. This is absolutely law. There are many things in Act 153 other than the mergers and the incentives, and there are even more in Act 156, but they are law. Some of them are session law, but session law continues to exist unless it either has a sunset in it, which this doesn't, or unless it is repealed. In this specific case, the part of Act 153 that refers to transportation actually amends Title 16. If you look at the last couple of years of, we call it the Green Book, but if you just look at Title 16, you'll see that the amendment in Act 153 is now inside the main body of Title 16.
Do you know if that was introduced to be a provision of the voluntary school district merger?
No, it was a separate section. And part of it, I hate to talk about legislative motives. I'm going to speculate here a little bit, so just among us friends. There were people who were much more concerned with achieving efficiencies through supervisory unions and people more interested, legislators, more interested in consolidation. And there are pieces in that bill that represent the interests of legislators who have different perspectives. They aren't incompatible, but they're different. And the expansion of SU responsibilities, the other big one being special education, is one part. and the merger section, the beginning 8 or 9 sections, is another. But they are all equally passed, signed by the governor, and law, unless they're repealed. There is one sunset, and that's that the incentives go away for mergers in 2017 unless they're extended. Now, I'm sorry, I know you were next.
Okay. I'm actually a member of the SU board, as is Jim representing Pownal. In our meeting last week, they took a vote, unanimous, to support Pownal to keep their buses. So, we haven't finished calculating or collecting our lower cost as yet. So, I do understand from what I heard from Bill Botso last night, there was a town in Upper Vermont, and I forgot the town, who won. They were going through the same thing we are, and they're allowed to keep their buses.
There was a town in Upper Vermont that made a case, and it still isn't permanent. They are geographically isolated from the remainder of the district. It was a fairly unique geographical circumstance. I know the case, I'm not going to mention the town, but I know the case you're talking about. But there was such a case. There are other cases that may well work. There's a district that there's an SU that has 3 districts lined up in a row, and the one in the middle has decided that its students are close enough to school that it doesn't need transportation. So the one in the middle doesn't have any transportation. It happens the high school is the one in the middle. And the ones on each edge have transportation, and it's likely to apply for a waiver saying, look, there's no logical link here. We don't see why there should be any efficiency, and we will think about that carefully. We're not trying to look for reasons to deny waivers.
Excuse me, let me just finish. First of all, I want to personally thank, on behalf of this board, each and every one of you people that came out to support us. And I want to let you know that we're not done. We'd like your support in the future too, and maybe in the near future.
Are you asking for a waiver?
We are going to ask. We're going to do what we have to do to keep our buses and our drivers in this town.
So I'd also, I would like to thank Pownal for coming down and talking to us
I'm happy
tonight.
to.
I understand, you know, we might not like the message, but I do want to thank you for coming down and talking to us.
And I truly...
Before we let him off the hook, though, I got a clarification from an answer you gave a minute ago.
Okay.
The question was, if they don't get the waiver, do they lose the state aid? And you said yes, unless the services were paid through the SU. So am I interpreting that to mean that if you deny the waiver and the SU employs the bus drivers, that they won't lose the state aid, or did you misspeak?
If the SU employs the bus drivers, and there are two, the SU could employ the bus drivers, the SU could lease the buses and hire the bus drivers. There are bunches of ways to do it. The difficulty comes in, given some of the other things that I've heard tonight, it seems like it would be fairly difficult to show that that would still meet the efficiency test for the SU as a whole. But if it does meet...
You said if the waiver failed, but the SU paid the bill.
And the SU is, the SU...
The SU still has to show that.
Thank you for, you're right, I misspoke. The SU board, when it decided to take on that responsibility, would be making a decision that it could do it efficiently. That's your legal obligation, not ours.
The efficiency obligation is there no matter what the model is.
But it also states, the law states, that the SU could have more than one contract.
It could have more than one contract. Efficiency SU-wide and effectiveness SU-wide. And I don't mean to, we tend to focus on efficiency, but effectiveness truly is important.
But I didn't hear the word quality either.
Well, I think quality is in our definition of effectiveness.
And I think an example, because I've had a couple, you know, and this is just spitballing off the wall. I mean, a definition or an example of that would be if right now the buses are picking every child up at their door, and under the new environment they have to walk 5 miles to get to a bus stop. That would be an example of a change in effectiveness.
That's not even close, right?
Well,
There might be a place where,
I know, but I'm just saying,
where,
that's
where
just an
it
example.
sounded as though people weren't acting in good faith, where changes were truly minor for significant savings. We expect, we don't just hope, we expect that SU boards are going to implement the laws as they're obligated to do. We don't start with a presumption that SU boards are going to game the system. He does. It's a serious obligation. The secretary takes it seriously, and she starts assuming that SU boards are going to make an equally serious effort. If there are reasons to look in further, for example, if it turned out that the SU board chose to sign a contract with the district, so it was paying for the district to do exactly what it wanted, and say, I don't know the percentage of your elementary students of the total SU transportation, but let's say it was 20% and the cost was 40%, we ask some questions. We're not trying to micromanage anybody. We're truly not. The legislature left boards with a great deal of authority. Another way to meld efficiency sometimes, and there are districts trying to do this. I don't know that there are any have succeeded, where they're trying to contract with a district that owns buses and expand its lines outside the district's boundaries while incorporating the other it's a contractor inside, so that there's kind of a networking effect, and efficiency is achieved that way. The way the SU achieves efficiency is very open. The secretary's serious about, believes she has a legal obligation and feels compelled to insist on SU board's legal obligations to make efforts to achieve efficiencies without sacrificing effectiveness.
So I'm not sure, Rick, maybe, did he answer your question? Because I didn't actually hear the answer. If the waiver was denied and Pownal, the SU hired the Pownal drivers and leased the buses from the Pownal school district, because that's how it would work, right? Am I correct?
Well, there are a bunch of ways it could work. That's one of them.
Right, but
that is one of the ways it could work.
Right, that was Rick's question. So if that happened, in that scenario, would Pownal lose their 40 point whatever percent of their aid, or would they get that aid? If that were the case, if that were the scenario that they followed.
We'd have to prove that it was more efficient.
That's the problem. If you appeal for a waiver and the secretary looks at it and determines that it isn't more efficient, and then the SU basically takes the same thing that the secretary says isn't more efficient, and the SU pays for it, that's going to be hard to justify. I'll be honest with you.
No, that's not.
If there were ways to smooth that out.
I want to know that 40% of the aid that comes in, or the expenditure, because the proposed budget for fiscal year 15-16
already includes
it. It's like $165,000, $163 or whatever.
In 15-16, you're going to get it. You don't need to worry about that at all.
But so, as far as you're going to get the aid
for the you're going to, because it's a reimbursement for 2 years back. Yes.
So.
But ideal, if you're not moving up to the SU now, it'd probably be good to ask for a waiver.
So basically, if they went that scenario that Rick asked about, they would be denied that 40 point whatever percent, 41% of the aid.
The problem is I'm not in a position to evaluate your efficiency argument.
Okay.
If we find, first of all, if we find you're right and the efficiency argument passes, you get your waiver.
Right.
If for some reason then it's denied and the SU says, okay, we're paying for it, then it's pretty logical for us to ask, well, if the SU's paying for exactly what they were doing, where's the improvement in efficiency compared to the contract that was there?
Your experience on the waivers that you've seen, I guess maybe the ones you've denied, if any, is it a flat-out denial, or do you say, I need more information here, I need more information there?
Thus,
I'm just wondering, how much of a thesis do we need to write? Or is there feedback back and forth saying, I hear what you're saying here, but you need to provide me more proof?
thus far, we have gotten very few requests, and that may be because people are diligently gathering the data, maybe because they're ignoring us, it's hard to tell. But for permanent waivers, the ones we're getting now are supervisory unions that say, look, we have a transition plan to get there, and our path to full compliance takes longer than what's in the law. And if there's a plausible reason and it gets there.
You understand my question? I'm just, how many bites at the apple? Do we need to put,
well, if you really shine the apple well the first time, Rick, only one.
My definition of shine may not be yours.
We'll shine it.
Sometimes the initial application is very, very little more than an assertion that our people want it, and we don't have the right under the law to give that. At the other extreme, and we've had very, very few of those so far because we haven't had people asking for permanent waivers, but at the other extreme, I'm having conversations with supervisory unions that are talking about a set of circumstances that are likely to be enduring. The most common is geographic, and they're saying that's not going to change, and when we start trying to coordinate that at the SU, we lose something, okay? So they're then going to gather data on what it would take to unify and to engage in the kind of regular communication with school buses that a number of people have mentioned in this geographical situation. They're most of the conversations for permanent waivers that are coming up now.
Vaughn,
Yes, sir.
the Secretary of Education told the superintendents that she expects the granting of waivers to be extremely rare.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
I work for the Secretary of Education.
So, she didn't sound too encouraging.
She is also the
other than a waiver for the transition.
A waiver for the transition. She takes the notion of the law very, very seriously. We start by knowing that it's not especially popular, which means we have to be somewhat careful. And I think that, and the other thing is the SUs that have gone first, it may be because it worked best for them, but we are getting real evidence of savings. So you put those things together and you can see her position, which is, look, even if you can't do it in the next 2 years, why can't you evolve to that over time? You know, as buses get old, as drivers retire, you know, she's somewhat skeptical. But the other thing is, she's as data-driven as anyone you have ever met in your life. And if it turned out that there were significantly more districts that had cases that met a standard of efficiency and effectiveness, the Secretary is absolutely determined to comply with the law. The reason she emphasizes that is we expect more of the, of people reluctant to change than we do of people going in the other direction. But if it turned out that there were a lot of unanticipated inefficiencies, the Secretary is going to honestly apply the law to the best of her ability.
And Mr. Superintendent, I don't want to go into this with a negative attitude. We want to go in with a positive attitude.
Absolutely.
And we want to be the
But
one
you read,
that-
you have the same memo from the secretary that I do.
But it's words. I mean, if we have to hire an attorney to help
Yeah.
us, I mean, everything can be changed. And we're not going to give up by
Yeah.
just saying it's the law and that's the way it is.
You might do better to hire an accountant than a finance analyst, but you start by having a very good one.
We'll find a good one.
And I just
wanna
want to
say
add,
thank
as
you.
principal of the school, I mean, I have a peace of mind every day that our children are safe coming to and from school. The communication that Mrs. Brooks has mentioned, our secretaries back here, they get the phone calls, they call to the buses immediately. We get a phone call from a parent in the morning, my child is sick today, we can let that bus driver know that they don't need to be picked up. It is efficient, it is effective.
And we have 74 miles of road in this town. And a lot of it is back roads, 74 miles of it. Our buses go on the back road. They do not stop at the bottom of the hill. They're not afraid to do the, I personally was a bus driver and did all the back roads. So our bus drivers, I mean, kudos to them for the 30 some odd years that they've been here. I want to say thank you to you.
I truly don't doubt that.
I know, and thank you for
And I
coming
wish
down.
you well. I wish you all well.
Oh, thank you.
Please.
I just want to make a comment as the manager for the company that I work for that serviced the Bennington County area for 25 years.
Sit down.
When you guys.
We don't have any hard feelings towards Pownal. We've always been there, we always will be. Like I said, I'm a resident. I wish everyone well. I hope that Pownal maintains their own school buses. Trust me on that one. I hope Pownal wins this and we don't have to come in and interfere with your business.
Thank you.
I would be happy to stay longer, but I think I've been dismissed and you have the rest of the meeting, right?
Yes.
We do. Thank you. Have a safe
Thank you.
trip.
Thank you so much.
All right, next on the agenda, we have our action items. A, treasurer's report. Is there any discussion on the treasurer's report?
I think you need to do that and take the vote because it was just the two of you that asked the supervisory. And we know that that vote isn't really going to go anywhere until we have the information. Yeah.
We didn't ask. That just.
Right, but if we follow the process that they're outlining, you should take a vote. And then the representatives, because the conversation I already had with them, that the vote that you took the other night is somewhat meaningless because we have to, I can't apply for the waiver yet until we have the documentation.
But why was the vote meaningless? Just SU vote.
They might make the point that you didn't vote for it. The process has to start with this board voting for it.
All right.
Just to cover yourself.
I'd like to make a motion. Pownal District petition superintendent to ask for a waiver from Act 153.
But I think.
I think you might want to change that, Jim. The supervisory union can instruct me to do it if I understand it correctly, so you should take a vote to ask the supervisory union to apply for the waiver.
That was, you make a motion to ask the supervisory union board of directors, okay, to ask the superintendent to file a petition for a waiver with the Secretary of Education.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for this board to ask the SU board to request the superintendent for a waiver. All right, motion been made and seconded. Is there any? All those in favor? It's unanimous. So that's what we'll do. This to cover. Thank you, Jim. I realize that. Okay.
Your vote might have been fine, but let's not have them kick it out on a technicality.
No, I understand that. You're right. So, Jim, when our next SU meeting, we'll have to ask them again.
We'll make a motion
Make
there.
a motion to ask their request. All right, the consent agenda. I need a
So
motion.
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the
I have a
consent
couple of quick
agenda?
questions. I know we spent a lot of time on that. There's $500,000 in assessment. The timing of that and what's going on is what?
$500,000 in assessments. I think this is the time of year they just actually collect part of that
Right.
assessment.
The assessments are done in 4 payments. The first payment is 1/3, and the last 3 are divided in a third.
A third of the remainder.
A third of the remainder.
So this $500,000 is a normal
Yes.
timing?
Yes.
That was my only question.
There would have been one in October, I think.
Okay, is there any other questions? Let me see if I got anything circled. Now, what is this, maybe Todd, you can answer this. Pediatric consulting service, what is that?
That's for a student evaluation.
Should that be in the SU, is that a SPED?
It's not.
It's not, okay, all right. Is there any other questions on the consent agenda? Did you have a question?
No, I just want to get to we have to set a meeting, so.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so seeing none, all those in favor, signify by showing hands. All right. Next is policies. 5030. This is to adopt for attendance. Attendance. Okay, motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on 5030?
Wholeheartedly, enthusiastically
Support it, good, good. Doug, are you okay with it?
Yeah.
No questions, all right, all those in favor of adopting for 5030? All right, it's unanimous. The next one is 5085, it's search and seizure, and this one is to warn.
So moved.
Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. Is there any discussion on 5085?
You should be prepared. Here, you want my copy?
No, I got a circle.
Oh my God, he's got circles. Right
Beware
there.
of circles.
Okay. That's where we are.
Capitalization.
Just give it to me, I'll take it back. Here.
Thank you. It was clerical. It was clerical.
Clerical, all right. All right, if there is no other discussion on 5085, all those in favor of warning it, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. The last one under policies is 6350. This is grade advancement, retention, promotion, and acceleration of students.
So moved.
Okay, this one is to adopt. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and second. Is there any discussion on 6350?
Okay, I want to vote yes, but have a question for the superintendent?
Yes.
The words social promotion don't, there's not a yes or no one here on that. The policy is good. Are we specifically ignoring social promotion? Is that subject taboo? I'll ask you. That's okay. I'm gonna vote yes.
All right,
There's no mention of it.
all
I
those,
believe we promote students who are ready to be promoted.
Yes.
It's a very good policy.
yeah.
Well, I'd like to have to say, the question still stays open, but we're done.
Are
Okay.
you in favor of social promotion or against?
No, I'm in favor of
Paul?
this policy, is a nice policy. Good policy.
All right,
Well
so
written.
all those in favor of 6350 signify by raising your hand, please. All right, it's unanimous, and this also is to adopt. So 2 adoptions went through in one morning. Next on the agenda is the principal's report.
So knowing that tonight's meeting was a little bit busy, I just thought I'd touch on a few calendar items. This Friday, our in-service, we're taking a look at, or dissecting, I guess you would say, the next generation science standards and taking a look at those. We're also going to be focusing on the test guides in preparation for SBAC, which is our newest testing, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium on Friday. Looking ahead, February 5th, our fourth graders will be tested. Our fourth graders here every 2 years, but fourth graders across the country are tested by what's called NAEP, and it's a National Assessment of Educational Progress of Students, and that is reported annually by NAEP, the results of those. And I believe in the middle school, 8th grade, take the NAEP as well. February 6th, our next family night is a basket bingo from 6 to 8 o'clock, so you're welcome to attend that. And looking forward to our spring musical, will be held March the 27th and 28th, and it's called Rats, and it has Pied Piper is the musical. That's it.
Follow the principle.
27th and 28th, yep.
Very good. Is that all you have?
That's it.
Okay. Because the vacation sets right in our next board meeting on the 18th, we're going to change it to the 25th. We're going to move it forward 1 week, so it's Wednesday, February 25th at 5 o'clock. Okay. Does that work for everybody? 5:30, I'm sorry. 5:30.
That's 25th?
The 25th, February 25th. This way here, it allows our principal to go skiing if he feels like it. And we won't call him in on vacation.
I appreciate that, thank you.
And the real reason is it's legislation day, so anyone board member that would like to go to the Mount Pelier and discuss anything you want with the legislators, that will be held on the 18th. All right. We need a couple minutes after our meeting for an executive session for discussion of the budget. No, this is the budget now, but the board needs to meet and discuss it. Are you looking at me like this, right?
I'm not sure exactly.
Well, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to do
Oh, okay, all right. Guess we don't.
Okay, what I handed out was a packet. This is the final packet. The a few twin items.
Where is this? What is this? What item are we on?
We're actually after, it's under the chair's report.
Okay.
It's for our, we didn't meet last night because
It wasn't
warned.
Right, right.
And I was so sad that I didn't have a meeting last night.
I was disappointed also.
Me too.
But actually, all this is final information that's going to be necessary for next week. We have to come up with a time next week to warn the warrant on the amount of budget that will be presented to the board, to the townspeople. So this here, just so you know, a little tweaking was done with the Mount Anthony number, so that it comes down to a net change now of 3 cents on the tax rate, or 2.22% increase in the tax rate. The budget that I sent you before did not change at all. Basically, the one I sent you yesterday did not change at all. Basically, it was just MAU. So if there is a time next week that we could meet, usually it'll take just 5 minutes.
Okay, we actually set the Tuesday, I believe the board members talked, we can, let me know if this is incorrect. Tuesday, the 27th, at, I think 5:30 is the earliest you ladies can make?
Earliest she can make.
Is 5:30 okay?
Are we
Okay.
doing it here?
Yes, here at the school, we'll meet, and it's basically, you're just gonna look over the,
So 5:30,
the
because
warning.
I had originally had it for 7, so it's going to be, you're going to do 5:30.
5:30,
Well, we
yes.
might,
What?
I got swimming lessons for the kid. I have a conflict on that Tuesday.
What time you gotta go to?
Well, the lesson's at the rec center at 4. I can't make it for 5:30.
But actually though,
It's a 5-minute meeting, right?
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
5-minute meeting, so I mean, if 4 of us get to sign it, you can actually go to the central
fine.
office, I believe it, and he can sign it
And
there,
I
is that
approve
correct?
all.
As long as you have a
I'm on
quorum at the
board.
meeting.
Yes.
I have no problem with it.
Okay, so I've included here the tax rate blended with MAU. There is a sheet right behind it that has a just a comparison tax rate of all the districts blended with MAU. A copy of the warning that will be signed next week, And then the final copy of the budget. This is your packet that you'll have for next week's meeting.
Is that the 25th?
27.
27th.
Okay, I'm looking at this is, why am I looking at a 3.24 on one paper and a 2.2 on another?
What are you looking at?
Tax rate.
I can't see what you're looking at.
I'm looking at the packet you gave us.
Your budget is going up to
3.24%?
3.24.
Yeah.
But to calculate the tax rate, it's got to be blended with Mount Anthony. And the tax rate is based on your equalized students.
Right.
And your change in your CLA, which
Yes.
brings it to a tax rate increase of only a 2.2.
Okay, so we're not adding the 2 to the 3?
No.
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 Okay, you know, I many times told you I'm not a numbers guru, so I just needed to be explained very simply. All right, okay.
All right.
That's good. Okay. So we will set it at, on next Tuesday at 5:30.
Here.
Here at the school to sign the paper. There will be somebody here to let us in?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll let them know. Okay. All right. Now we have the superintendent.
I'll also be brief because I looked at the agenda, but a couple of dates I want to remind you. The first one, probably the most important one, February 9th at Central Office, 7:45 in the morning is the next legislative breakfast. So if all you can make it, I mean, I think the past legislative breakfasts has been a handful of people. So there's the opportunity to express your concerns. And we have sent out a reminder today, we're going to send out another reminder tomorrow. We need a good representation from our representatives too, because there's, the last meeting I think we had three. So.
May I say something about that?
Mhm.
I read the paper and I was very disappointed that the chamber had a legislative breakfast and they all showed up. How come we aren't with them? I mean, sometimes it's hard for them. We started this and then the
Yeah.
chamber started taking it over.
Because it's a different topic, I mean, on ours tends to be
Town and
education
school.
versus business,
Well, it's
right?
pretty
Yeah.
sad though that if we only get 3 and it's a school and yet the town gets so many, I guess that disappoints me a little
Yeah.
bit. That tells you, I don't know, I guess I don't want to run off at the mouth, but
Yeah.
I just did.
Could be the topic too.
Yeah.
What else do I want to say? So, I've been having there's been a lot of superintendent meetings. I was in Rutland today with the regional superintendents, and last week up in Barry, and the Secretary of Education was the featured speaker. And, transportation is not the only thing that's on her agenda, but she also spoke about the troubles with the SBAC test. The state has yet to sign a contract with the contractor, and that test is in March. And the message from the secretary, and she promises that she's going to get this out, that because of the federal guidelines, we need to move forward with this test. We have to do it or we risk losing our title money. And she wants us to all embrace the test, move forward with it, and it'll serve as a benchmark, though it really might not be and really, I don't see how it can be an accurate measure of our students' performance this year at all, because we still don't have it.
That's right.
And, I mean, there's some online practice tests. I think our staff has been doing a great job with what they have, but, we have a professional development day scheduled for this Friday, and we don't have everything, on the test, which that's what the day was planned for. And the state has kind of let us down on that. Now, she blames everything that goes with the Health Connect, that has the rollout of the website for the state health plan and the mess that was, put new restrictions on any type of software and any type of contracts that it's been checked and double checked and triple checked, and that's part of what this delay is. But whatever the delay is, it's going to have an impact on our students' performance. And she says she understands that. She says the Agency of Education is going to stand behind the schools and get that message out that we shouldn't be judged on, because this test could just as well be a test of our technical capabilities as well as our students' performance. That's not reassuring to me, but I just want to put that on your radar that, you know, because there will be people who will still judge our students by how they did on this test, even though nobody's ready for it, but we don't really have a choice. So that, and what else did I want to mention to you that's of importance, so I know everyone wants to get on. And we're still in the process of setting the regional school calendar for next year. You know, I've had a series of meetings on that, meeting with the association tomorrow on what the proposed regional calendar. The only thing that we really have flexibility on, because I don't know if you know the concept on the calendars, we're supposed to align it with the regional technical centers because they come from multiple high schools, so they're all supposed to have the same. So our flexibility is on where we put our professional days, but not like where we put vacations, or unless we can convince the region to change the vacation. Because that's always a question every year, you know, can we do 1 week in March and not the February and April vacation or whatever, but that, unless everybody from Rutland on down agreed, that's probably not going to happen. So that's coming along, and that's really all I got for you. I wanted to be brief because
Actually,
we
from
talked
Rutland down, we belong to Massachusetts, I think.
Can I just ask something?
Yeah.
To make a comment about the SBICs that you were speaking of, and I completely agree with you. And I'm just wondering, when these software developers create these programs, don't they do any usability studies with a test group of students that they, or, you know, students in general?
There has been some, because it's not just Vermont that's doing this test, so there has been some test groups that have done it. And what Vermont's experience right now is the delay in selecting the vendor who will do the final, you know, rollout of the online version of it. And there are school systems that are going to be able to take a paper version of the test this year because they're not ready with the technology piece of it. So, and I don't necessarily agree with the Secretary of Education on this, but I see where she's coming from, and she's got to put the most positive spin on it possible. But to be testing our students on something that we're not really ready to do, well, then those results, in my opinion, shouldn't necessarily be released publicly. But when it's done, they're going to be absolutely they're going to be skewed.
Because this is for all the students, right? So if you've got second graders that are just learning how to use the up arrow and the down arrow and what do I click here and what to, you know, that haven't had the exposure to the computers that maybe other kids have had, or even like third grade, or students that don't have the technology just to do the functionality of it, and that's gonna be incredibly screwed. I mean, skewed.
Sorry, might have been right the first time, but yeah.
I personally would like to see legislators in the state stay out of the school.
The Secretary did say she is going to be asking the legislators to take the test.
Oh, good.
Drug testing next.
No comment. I get myself into trouble enough. Okay, thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Superintendent.
And,
All right, FYI, your budget status report, okay, was enclosed, and the SVSU student enrollment for January. And if there's no other business to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion to dismiss.
Second.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
No, Jim said, oh, Jim
Good job, Cindy.
Thank you, Jim.